Hey guys, what's up, it's iPhone here, and welcome to episode 12 of Warframe Playing Like a Pro, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Akstilleto Akimbo secondaries in Warframe. Now these weapons are the nemesis of the Aximati, which we covered in the previous episode, apart from the fact that you can mod these for either crit or status chance depending on the faction and the level of enemies that you're going up against. Now it's a little tough to explain and it might be a little tough to grasp for newer players, but if you just want a general, like, let's just go ahead and kill some things build, just make sure to mod for crit chance and crit damage, as that is usually the safest option when you're modding a weapon that has a split between status and critical chance. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the build, and I'll show you guys first off the crit build, and then I'll explain a little bit more in detail as to what I mean by you can either mod for crit or status on this build. So let's take a look at the actual base stats for this weapon, because they're actually pretty interesting. So to begin with, we have a 15% crit chance, which is kind of low. It's kind of like the bare minimum that you need whenever you're modding for crit on either a rifle or secondary, even melee for that regard. And then we have a 30% status chance. Now, you look at that and you'd say, okay, well, status is obviously the more dominant factor here. Why wouldn't I just go ahead and mod for status chance? It's because of that, you know, you have a possibility to mod for your crit chance, and you also have a pretty decent multiplier of 2.0. Now, if you were to go ahead and throw on, let's say, for example, our prime target cracker here, right? That bumps that up to 4.2. Now, 4.2 times the amount of damage that you're originally dealing is pretty substantial, right? So you throw that on, and then you throw on your elements on. You have your 90% elements, of course, you're dealing even more damage. That adds up. So that's what you basically want to be modding for your crit chance, your crit damage, right? So the more you throw on, like the more damage mods, the more crit mods you throw on here, you see the numbers just keep on going up and up and up, represented by the green over here. Last but not least, we throw on our Lethal Torrent, and you would see you have a 43.1% critical chance, which is pretty decent, 4.2 times multiplier, which again is pretty good, and on top of that, you also have that 63.2 status chance, which isn't that bad, especially whenever you're not having any of your status mods on. Now, at this point, you'd be like, okay, well, I could just throw my elements on and also throw the status mods on, right? So it's like you get your elements from your status mods. So someone would do something like this here, and then you'd be like, yeah, sure, this is cool. Okay, well, maybe not that because that's fire, but or not that because it's ice storm. But you'd throw on jolt, you'd throw on, let's see, what's the other one called, pistol pestilence, and you throw on your scorch or something. If I can find scorch, where is it at? I'm pretty sure I have a max rank one of these. Where's that at? There it is. So you throw that there on, you'd be like, okay, I have a 99.4% status chance and a pretty good, you know, crit multiplier, crit chance, all this good stuff, and you'd be like, yeah, that's a pretty decent build. So let's go ahead and try that out. Keep in mind, I am using Mesa here. I might actually swap from Mesa. But, you know, you have a pretty decent build. Let's just go ahead and swap from Mesa first, because Mesa has like an innate fire rate buff whenever you're using dual secondary. So let's use something that will just CC the enemy. Let's say, let's use Loki and just disarm them. But, you know, you have pretty good damage potential having both those on, right? You'd think that, but let's just go ahead and take a look at, I didn't spawn them in, one derp per video. I mean, this video is just going to go downhill from here. Like, I had a pretty good presentation at the start, and I'm just going to and like, yeah, let's do all this good stuff, but disarm the enemy, and go ahead. You know, you'd think that you have good damage. Reality, you have decent damage, right? You have your crit, you have your status, and it's pretty good. That's a level 130 enemy. Like, dropping it that fast is no joke, and that's 40 rounds of magazine, and that's like 2.5 or 1.5 magazines right there. So you'd think that having your status mods on would be a good idea, right? So let's compare that. Okay, let's put Hornet Strike back on, because you kind of need that mod. But let's compare that to if we had our 90% on. Like, you'd think that, okay, well, I don't have to put as much effort into my build because I can just use the status mods, which if you're very lazy, you can go ahead and do that, right? You're still going to be able to kill those very high tier enemies. So let's go ahead, simulate our heavy gunner right here, and kill him with our 90% mods. So this is going to be a lot faster, right? Because you're dealing a lot more base damage because the numbers are a lot higher, and you also have that pretty decent status chance as well. So you're like, okay, Flynn, that's great and everything, but you mentioned at the start of the video that you can mod for either, and realistically, I've demonstrated to you that you can mod for both. You can mod for either status chance or a crit chance in terms of throwing on your 60% status mod on your weapon for the elemental combos while still having your crit mods on. I've demonstrated that. That's cool, but you might be asking yourself, well, you know, at what point is it more beneficial to use one over the other? And that's where things get a little bit more complicated, because you have the enemies like the Grenier, right? They suffer a lot from weapons that have status chance on them, because you're able to strip that armor off them, and then you have obviously your physical damage types and all this stuff, blah blah blah. So you'd be like, okay, well, at what point in the game should I be modding for status chance to deal more damage or have higher DPS than what I would be with our crit chance? And that's a very tricky thing to answer, simply because, you know, what point are you willing to go to, you know, because it's very high level content that you're talking about here whenever you want to mod for status chance. And this is something that has been covered like years ago by a guy called Calypso Game, and he did a status dread build, and I showed that status dread build to my clan at the time, and they kind of all laughed at me like, yeah, you're not going to need that until you're like going at level 9,000 enemies. So, you know, you can either do the status build and have that and keep on running with it and have it there, and then have a few people laugh at you and be like, yeah, well, you just mod for crit because you'll drop those lower level enemies faster. Or you can say, well, yeah, I have this build which is really insane, which is going to kill level 9,000 enemies faster than your crit build, Akstilleto, because, yeah, but at that point you're like, you know, those enemies are going to take a lot of bullets to kill anyway. So basically what I'm saying here is mod for crit. But if you're one of those guys who wants to go for your very long ass endurance runs, and I mean very long ass endurance runs, you mod for status and crit. Okay, so whenever you're just playing normally, have your crit chance mods on. Well, you always have your crit chance mods on, but have your 90% elements on. But whenever you're playing against the very high level factions, high level enemies, sorry, make sure you have your status mods on. So your status mods are the dual stat mods, which will give you status chance plus 60% of whatever element it is. So for example, frostbite, 60% cold and 60% status chance, so you grip those up. And obviously as well, if you don't want to do this here and have your third element on, you want to go overkill on taking down those VIPs, you can take off your third element being heated charge right here, and then throw on your sharpened bullets like we like to do in all of our other videos. So we've spawned in our butcher like so, and then we would demonstrate how good this weapon is at killing this boy over here. If I could hit his head, that would be awesome right now, you know. But yeah, they die pretty fast, so that's going to be regardless of what faction you're going up against, because this is just a very well-rounded weapon in terms of your impact, puncture, and slash, in terms of your fire rate, in terms of your crit chance. It's just a very good, well-rounded weapon, and it's probably one of those really hipster cool weapons. Like it used to be back in the day, the bolter. Everyone would use the bolter regardless of what faction you're going up against. I think the Akstilletos kind of took that spot for secondaries. Used to be the Marlock and stuff, but it's kind of fell off because it's single shot, and not a lot of people use that anymore. I love my Vacor Marlock. I'm not saying it's bad. I love it. But it has sort of been, this is kind of one of those meta weapons, you know, that everybody has and everybody uses it pretty substantially, if you get what I mean. So that is pretty much going to be it for this video, guys. Remember to basically mod for whatever faction you're going up against. So if you're going against Corpus, mod for Magnetic. If you're going against Infested, go for your Corrosive and Fire. Or if you're going against Corrupted, you go for your Corrosive and Cold, and do all your good stuff. And sometimes if you're going against Grenier, you want to mod for your Radiation and Toxin, depending on how far you're willing to go and all this good stuff. So that is pretty much it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button below, and you want to see more Warframe content from me. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time with what's the next weapon. I forget what the next weapon is. I don't know what the next weapon is, but you guys will see what the next weapon is tomorrow. But I'll see what the next weapon is once I end this video, and I'm gonna keep this video going for another 30 seconds to get to my 10-minute mark, because I learned from the greatest YouTuber ever, PewDiePie, that if you keep your video going for 10 minutes, then you get more views and you get more money and you get to put more ads in your videos. So I'm just going to keep on going and keep on talking shit so I can get more of that dank ad revenue, okay? And you guys can keep on looking at my build, and this is the build right here. Like all the mods are very pretty, and yeah, it's pretty good build. So 5 forma, you gotta throw 5 forma on it. You're gonna go with your 5 Vs and 2 dash polarities, and that's 10 minutes. I'll see you guys in the next video.